Today we are going to be talking about hierarchy in web design. That's a visual hierarchy. Essentially, it is how, as a web designer, you are going to let people know where they need to look. So whenever one of our target consumers, our target audience members is looking at our website, they need to figure out what's most important. And it's our job, designing the website, to signal to them what is the most important thing for them to look at by using visual hierarchy. So here's a quote: "Visual hierarchy controls the delivery of the experience. If you have a hard time figuring out where to look on a page, it's more than likely that its layout is missing a clear visual hierarchy." So a good website design will immediately let the user know where to look and what they need to do, whereas a poor website design will confuse and overwhelm the user. So let's look. Here we have a website, and as you can see with this quick little video, you have a good idea of where to look. At first you looked at that logo, and once that scrolled up, now we're looking at designs that this architectural studio has created, and they're letting us know what's important. And we're about to scroll down, and you can see now we have more information here. We have a new set of types of photos to look at. They're smaller than what we had up above. They're not as focused, and again here more information. The lower we go, the smaller the information gets. That's good visual hierarchy. Now, to show you an example of a nightmare example of visual hierarchy, I'm going to show you this web page from a fencing company. And for the fencing company, I just went ahead and took off the identifying information so nobody's too embarrassed by it. So here, I don't know what to look at when I'm here. Do I look at the red and black on the left-hand column? Do I look at the green at the top? Do I look at the mass amount of words that we have? Do I look at the blue hyperlinks? Do I look at the pictures, and some of them are changing and flashing? Do I look at the text that's in a gray box? I don't know what to do. This was not designed by somebody who thought about visual hierarchy. Let me show you some examples of websites that are positive and negative from some fashion websites. So some of these use visual hierarchy well, and some do not. So let's go to this one first. So here we have a fashion website, and when we get there, what do we look at first? We're going to look at her outfit first. That gets our attention, and there's also on the right hand side 40% off holiday discount. Now it's kind of cut off so you can't see the whole thing, but those are the things that are going to get your attention first. And this is good if we want to look at her outfit and then we think about wanting to shop. So good, look at the outfit first, look at the 40% off, and then click on the 40% off and go shopping. So that's good. It leads me through this well. Here is another one that it has this visual hierarchy here for me now. I can see this photo, I see the dress, and I have information here, the Mad for Plaid. There's a button shop now that I can click on. I can take this in and enjoy the aesthetics and immediately know what I need to click on to actually shop. Here's another one, another website fashion page in which I come here and I know that if I want to look at we want to look at what's new in the women's clothes, I'm going to click on that left hand. If I want to look at what's new for him, I'm on that right hand side. And if I want to look at accessories, I'm here. I can easily decide where I need to go to click on whatever area is best for my choices as a consumer. Here's another one. And so we have this visual hierarchy in which at first at top, they want to let you know it's 50% off site-wide, so they get your attention up here. We have links for you, quick links for you that are most popular things. We have a countdown list, and then we have a photo of people. And always when we're at fashion or fashion types of websites, do you see yourself as one of these people? If you could kind of think, oh, I'd love to be one of the people in this scene, then you know their clothes are for you. If you look at the picture and you're like, ew, then you know this is not the retail site for you. But both things are good for you to know. Here's another one. This is for Ralph Lauren, and actually this one I do not think does a good job of visual hierarchy. So the problem is we have this huge watch here, and we have this white wording that's very difficult to read with this white watch here. So this is a slider. They have different photos that crop up every 2 seconds about, and other ones it's fine, but for this one it's hard to read, so it is hard for me to know what I'm going to do from here. And even what they're selling, are they just selling watches when they're trying to lead you to our favorite gifts? Okay, so let's look at some examples that are positive and negative from some church sites. Here we have the Village Church, and let me first say that I do not know anything about these particular churches. I only looked at website design. I do not know what denominations they are. I don't know if if they're ones that I agree with doctrine or not. I was simply looking at website design. So here we get in and we know immediately what's important to this church. Love God, love people, make disciples of Jesus Christ. That's a very clear message. And we have a large image that also helps us understand, do you see yourself as somebody who would be going to this church? We have clear call to action buttons with the blue join us for services. So very easy to navigate from this visual hierarchy standpoint. Here we have another one, and this particular church, it's the Summit, I believe, and with this, I do have a clear call to action button with the learn more, but I find myself a little wanting from this. I'm not quite sure what type of church this is. Is this the kind of church where I might want to be at? It's a kind of a cool graphic here. I do, I think I kind of groove with it, but it's not giving me much information. And if I was somebody who was looking for a church and I clicked on this and saw this, I don't think I would likely, personally, this would not make me want to continue scrolling through their site and looking at more and then possibly going. I would put this particular graphic down lower and do something up higher that would appeal to me more as the user. Here's another one from Mariners Church. Large picture to get attention, people being baptized. Then we have our headline, inspiring people to follow Jesus and fearlessly change the world. So again, we know exactly who is being targeted here. Now, I would like to have a call to action button down here. There isn't one. You can scroll through the site. There is more below it that I didn't grab a picture of. And of course, we have our buttons at the top, which help as well. But I would like just one more little bit there to help me know what to do next. But overall, I think it's a nice example of really getting attention and letting me, the user, know kind of what they're about. Here's another one, and I'm not going to say the name of this church because this is one of my negative examples. Here, I'm not quite sure what to look at first. We have all sorts of colors. We have bright yellow, we have purple, we have orange, we have blue, and we have clip art strewn throughout here. We have a bunch of different types of fonts, some very childlike with this welcome to or full menu here, and it's kind of a mess. My eye is just darting from place to place to place, and I'm not finding a good place for my eye to rest and focus and really decide what I'd want to do next. So what we could do with this is, one, I would simplify the fonts. I would not use the childlike font, but I would also simplify this color scheme, and I would use these colors as you scroll down. I wouldn't use it all in one section where we see it at the same time. You could use all of these colors. That's not a problem. I just wouldn't use it on the same screen. I want to use it as I scroll down. So lower I can have the orange, a row of orange information, and below that I could have a row of blue, but I'm not going to want it all right here where it's very hard to know what comes next. All right, so as we talk about visual hierarchy, there are a few elements that we use in order to determine how to create visual hierarchy. One of the most popular ways to create it is size. We can also use color. We can use contrast. We can use white space. And just a note, white space, you'll also hear me call it negative space. It's the same thing. We'll talk more about that in a moment. We can use alignment, proximity, repetition, texture, and style. All of these are things that can help us create a visual hierarchy. So let's look at some examples. Let's look at size. So the essential concept is that larger elements easily draw our attention. And so anything that as a designer I think is important needs to be large. What is the most important thing that we need to get people's attention and to reveal what our website is about? That's how we're getting their attention. And here we have a nice large photo and we have large text. And these work together very well to come together for one complete message. This one as well, we use size. We have the large image, and then we also have the large text to again help us to understand what's important here. Another one to show you, this is from Elevation Church, and you can see they use photos in a different sort of way. Instead of, the last two had a photo that was a full width. And this one, instead of going full width, they have just used kind of a center column and left two side columns that are going to not have any information in there. It's a choice, it's a different way of doing things, but because it's not as large, it probably doesn't get our attention quite as well. However, here we have the bread is in your hands, Holly Furtick, and so the size of that is probably what's going to get our attention there. And this one again, so we have where we have this large graphic in Christmas at DPAC. And so that's what gets our attention. But again, if it's not clear what this is, I'm not sure it's the right way to get our attention. Okay. Now, next thing I want to talk about is colors. So we just talked about size, but also we need to talk about colors because bright colors will catch the eye before muted colors. And so in some ways that's a great thing because we're looking at bright colors to get our attention. However, the problem is that if we have too many bright colors, then our eye is just darting all over the place. So we want to use just one bright color. Let me go back to this one. And you notice where we also have this orange watch sermon, one bright color there. This, in addition to having our slightly larger headline here, this color is also going to help you to focus, and that's going to draw your attention and might encourage you to click on that first. So colors can be very helpful and useful. If you want people to click on something, color is an excellent way to let them know that, hey, click here. Contrast is another way that we can develop visual hierarchy. And so with the contrast, if we have one element that contrasts with everything else, that's going to make us pay attention. So in this case, with this particular church, we have these kind of muted tones, and we get these muted blues that's not only in this background, but also in the picture of the men's shirts have these kind of muted blue hues. Also the windows, kind of the metal on the building outside have this. So when we get to this brighter plan your visit button here, that contrast draws our attention. And so it's not that it's a color necessarily. The last one we talked about color. This is just that it's a contrast, that it's different. Not just that it's a bright color, but it's different than everything else. And any type of contrast will make us sit up and pay attention. Now, white space. I said we'd get to white space when I mentioned it earlier. White space, also known as negative space. And let me just mention that if I knew nothing about design, I might accidentally call white space blank spaces. Like I have this empty spot, this blank space on my page, my website, that I need to fill in. Because I kind of feel like I'm wasting all this real estate if I don't have stuff that's there. But in design, white space is very important because when we have this white space or negative space without content, it will draw our attention to the content. So I'm going to show the screenshots from the architecture site again, because you notice here we just have a kind of a tiny logo here, but it really grabs attention even though it's tiny because it's the only thing on the page. And it takes it about a second before this logo will head up into the menu bar, and then it will load what is actually happening here. And so this white space here, they have chosen not to have an image spread all the way across. Instead, they are using the white space to drive your attention to this image here, as well as to the headline and to the copy here. The copy, the words, what they're writing about it. And so they're it's the white space is kind of forcing you to look in this direction. So that's what white space will do, is it will make you look at what they want you to look at. Just make sure that what you're driving people to look at is good. If you remember the example I showed you of the elevation one, let me go back a couple here. We have a lot of white space, but it's not really doing a great job of driving our attention in. Here, I do kind of feel like it's a little bit wasted. It's not really driving me to look where I want to look. So it's there, but it's just kind of existing. Whereas with this one, it's pushing our attention to a really good point where we're going to be seeing some really interesting things. All right, so the next element to talk about to establish visual hierarchy is alignment. So elements that are aligned, when they're lined up, they're in order, they fade in importance. We don't pay as much attention to them. Elements that are not aligned grab our attention more. So in this case, we have 4 columns here. 3 of them are aligned. They all are in the same place. This one is taller, and they want this one to draw your attention. So not only did they use alignment to draw your attention, they also used color here as well to draw your attention, so that you'll just kind of pass over those cheap prices, even pass over the really expensive one, because they don't expect a new person to pay that immediately. Yeah, that would maybe you use it, you love it, and it's going to help your business, then you'll do that. But over here, this one they think is possible. So that alignment can help get attention. And here is another example of alignment from Mariners Church. And you notice, so this is a section that's called Our Stories, and we have 3 that are aligned. They're the same size, same distance apart. They're aligned. This one is larger, and it goes above the blue row here. So this is trying to get your attention and saying, this is a story we think you should listen to, that you should click on here, watch the story, and this is what we'd like you to do first. And so alignment really does a good job with that. And last, I just want to make sure that when you use alignment where you have elements that are not aligned, that you do it thoughtfully. So here I have one from a website in which we have this section here, and it ends right here. And then we have this box over here that it starts at the same place as here. It has the same top. It is, actually there's more distance between the edge of this particular container over to here. So it's not really well aligned there, but also kind of hard to see because it's light gray on white. But the box ends down here, whereas this one ends here. But there's no good reason to have these 2 things misaligned. It would be much better if we just made this little container here a bit shorter. Maybe we just change the font 1 point and make it end with this one, and that would be a much cleaner image than to have to items that are misaligned but have no positive reason for it. Another element to think about is proximity. So elements that are placed closely together imply that there's a relationship between them. So when we see a row like this where we have one picture here, two picture here, and we go here and we know there's a little scroll bar, so if we press this we'll see more of them here. They're going to be like the other. So these things are alike. So these are pictures of work that this particular architectural firm has done because they're here and they're in this close proximity, they're aligned. This is great. What we don't want is to suddenly have a picture of maybe their office, unless they designed their office, or maybe we don't want a picture of someone sitting at a computer or even a drafting table. Not in this section, because we want the proximity here to be of like things together. Here's another example also from the architecture website. So we have a few columns here, some different recognitions. So we have one column of things that they're recognized on, another one, a third, and a fourth. And we understand that these are all articles that mention this particular architecture firm. And again, these are like the others. It's exactly how we expect it to be. They're in close proximity. That's great. Going back to one of the fashion sites, again, we have this this is a particular good example of repetition. So this would be that if you repeat a style, that also implies that there's a relationship between that content. So we have a column here, we have a column here, and we have a column here. And so we have this repetition of a style with a call to action. All these call actions happen to be aligned, so they're similar styles, but they would take us to three different places. But it's very easy for our eye to understand that there's three different places we can go, but we're going to get a fairly similar experience. If I click on this one, I'm going to find similar types of content than if I clicked on this one. It's simply the subject matter, the products that I would be interested in, that's going to make that difference. So we have this good repetition here, and so I just put a box around this as if you couldn't have figured it out before I put the box here. So another example of repetition, so here we have upcoming events, and they've put all of these together so we understand, and we not only have the photo here, the size, but we also have the same color font. We have the same way of marking the date. We have the same call to action button. Texture and style is another thing that we can mention, so that when there are different textures, that can draw our eye. So with this fashion one, we have this box here that is that we have kind of this faded, that we have, it's opaque, but it's we have some opacity to it. And so that draws our attention because it's different than everything else here. All right, so those are some of the major techniques we use when trying to create visual hierarchy. Now, I've mentioned two words, rows and columns, a number of times as I've been talking about these different websites, and I just want to make sure that I focus on this in particular because it's one of the most basic ways that in web design that we are going to be strategically communicating to our user. When we use rows and columns, we can easily help our user to break down the information into bite-sized chunks. Do you remember that fence page I showed you where everything was just on there and it was just hard to know what to look at? It was just so busy. All these words, all these pictures, everything clamored for attention, and it just gives me a headache. Rows and columns mean that we're not going to do that. We're going to create an easy to digest experience for our user. Let's go back to this one, and I'm going to show you a little video now of the full web page, and we're going to look at rows. And so a row is when we have these elements from left to right. So this is one row, and you can see we're about to start a second row down there, but let me play this and you'll see. All right, so here we have row 2, and now we've got to row 3, and all this information goes together. Row 4, and here we have new types of information here. We have row 5, new information. We have row 6, and we have row 7, and then we have the footer, which kind of acts as row 8. So that's an example of rows. And when we do our web design, we are going to use rows to separate content. Let's see, I went a little too fast. Columns. Now columns are where we are going to break up our website and be looking at it kind of from top to bottom. And we have 2 columns here. I have one column with a photo, a heading and a photo, and then I have one column with copy and a call to action button. So that's using a row. And another example of a row, of a column, excuse me, is here, in which we have 1 column, 2 column, 3 column. Very easy for us to understand how the information is there, and gives us that little bit of separation, just kind of bite-sized chunks for us to look at. Now I'm going to go to this one, and we have just one row to begin with up here, but as we go down, as we scroll down, we're going to see columns on this one. So we will see 3 columns, 3 columns, here just 1 column, and then here we have 4 columns. And so it's here, and of course as we're looking at this, I think you probably understand this, but we're using rows and columns at the same time. So when we're here at the top, that's 1 column, or that's 1 column in 1 row. And here we have 3 columns in a second row. And as we go down, we have a 3rd row that also has 3 columns. Then we have a 4th row that's just 1 column. And then we have 5th row that has the 4 columns, and so forth. So this is what we are going to be doing in our websites in order to be making website design that shows visual hierarchy. A lot of the information that I've given you in this video comes from the Interaction Design Foundation. And one of the things they say is that you need to understand your users' priorities. You want to guide users with a sense of ranked information. It's self-defeating to try to emphasize everything on the screen. We want our users to enjoy the content that we're creating. We want it to be of value to them. And if we say everything is valuable because we have too many colors, too many size variations, too many alignment adjustments, and no negative space, then when we do that, it's just confusing, and we're not helping our website, and we're not helping our users. And another thing that they mention is to remember the purpose of each page, each screen's problem-solving function. So we think of this as a user comes to our website. What is it that they want to know? What is it that they want to learn? How can we help them? So think of your customer journey. How are they coming to you? What do they want to happen? Are they coming to learn about your brand? Are they coming to learn so that would be more of an awareness customer journey. Are they coming to think about maybe purchasing something from your website or visiting your church? Or are we going to the action? Do we want to actually sell them something? Do we want to actually convince them to come through the doors of our church? And so each page we have to think, what is it? Which part of the journey is somebody going to be on when they're on this page? And how can we close the deal? So if you are looking at your page and you're like, oh, I'm doing too much on this page, it's always okay to step back, take an element or 2 or 10 off of the page and just keep your focus clean. Let your visual hierarchy tell the story of what's important and close the deal with your users.